Nice day for a little project. This one is pretty little. Hello my friends, and welcome to Tom's Tinkering and Adventures. Well, a friend of mine dropped off this little pit bike here. I think they said they had a 8-year-old kid or something they wanted to try to throw on it, but these things are fun for kids or adults either way. And the nice thing about these is the majority of these are Honda clone style engine, so they are very numerous parts available for these, and they're fairly reasonable. Now they said that this thing ran a while ago and it's just been sitting. Obviously you can see we got rust, super rusty chain. This air filter feels like it's about to fall apart if I touch it. Let's see, I already loosened that up. Let's get that off of there. The carburetor looks pretty dirty already. Well, you can see in there. So it's just been sitting. But let's see if we can get some fire out of this beast. I really need to get some carburetor cleaner. This is terrible. Down to 2 cans with a little spritz each. I will get my stand. I'll put some spray in here and we'll see if we can get it to fire. If that's the case, I'll pull that carburetor off and we will clean that up, see if we can get it to run, and then go from there. These things can be cheap or a money pit, either way you decide to go about it. So we just have to assess the situation. All right, let's see what we can do here. I put some fuel in the tank, but I imagine the carburetor is pretty gummed up. We have life. Almost sounds like it wants to run. Let's try one more. And we'll try with the choke on this time. No, I imagine we have a stuck float. Pretty common. But there's enough life in there that it makes it worth our time to pull that carburetor. And to do that, there's 2 bolts. I actually started loosening one. I was gonna pull it off before I even tried it, but I figured we'd try it. Oh, and this is good to see. It's a 70. It says 72, so 70 cc's. All right, I'm gonna pull that carburetor off and we'll take a peek at it. I really got to get this smell-o-vision incorporated into YouTube because this thing smells terrible. And look at that. Someone's been... Can you hear that? It's talking. Oh, look at that. There's water coming out of it. You see that? Someone's messed with this already. There's a gob of sealant on the bottom. I'm going to mess with this carburetor, clean it up a little bit, but I may just order a new one. A whole carburetor for these things is $20. So, that being said, kind of silly to even mess with it for that price. Super cheap. And there's a reason why. They're all made in China. Oh, goodness. You can see all the water in there. That does not smell good, ladies and gentlemen. Look at all the sealant around here. Woo! And those jets are just jammed up with junk. And there's the float. I can't tell if it's moving or not. It is not moving. The float is stuck. So, all right. We need to get this pin out of here. Sometimes those things kind of tend to get stuck a little bit. Let's see if I have a little pin coming up here. give it a little tap, but you got to be careful because if you start pounding on these things, you can break these ears off. I don't know if that's what they're called, these little supports here that the pin goes through. So you got to be kind of careful. If it breaks, I wouldn't be too upset because, like I said, this carburetor is in sad shape. All right, the pin's moving, so that pin will come out. I'm gonna pull that pin out. I'll pull these two. This is your main jet, your idle jet, and we'll see if we can't get that needle out of there from the float and see what we can do about getting this thing cleaned up. Pilot jet, main jet, and emulsion tube. I believe that's an air screw. I took out of the body of the carburetor right there. And there's our float needle and our float bowl. There's the pin that the float was held on with, carburetor body. So we'll throw all that into the ultrasonic cleaner over here and we'll just see what happens. I mean, probably best to just replace this carburetor. While this thing was soaking in the ultrasonic there, I took a look on Amazon and such, and I can buy a carburetor for 13 bucks. So sort of a wasted effort here working on this, but I just did a really quick clean on it. This is not very thorough, and with this bowl having this, I shouldn't even wasted time, but I guess it'll be fun to see if we can get it running. We will finish assembly on this thing here, put the float in here, and put the bowl on. I'll install the carburetor, and we'll see if we can get it to rev up at least a little bit and see what happens. We've got the crusty old crusty old carburetor installed, and I'm going to install the crusty old air filter, and we'll see if we can't get this thing to start and run. We'll see what happens, but I'm still going to order a new carburetor, I think. Make sure when you're working on your pit bike and starting it that you have safety flip-flops on. It's vital. Okay. Jam that on there and see what happens. Choke is on. There we go. Somehow I kicked it into gear. Look at that, would you? Even with the crappy air filter. Crappy carburetor. It's running like new. Well, maybe not quite. Choke on. Yeah, kill switch doesn't work. Well, I guess it killed itself. Okay, well that's good news. It runs. Yeah, still gonna order a new carburetor. That one is just in such sad shape, and for the price, it doesn't really make sense to mess around with it anymore. Although, you know, messing around with it already, I guess we have it for a spare. Unfortunately, all the carburetors I looked at were really weird. Let me see here. So this one has the choke on this side. A lot of them had the choke on that side, and then one that I'm looking at right now has a different choke, but I think it should still work, and come with a new air filter. So all said and done, not bad. I mean, it runs. So we'll get that carburetor, and I'll talk to the owners here and see what they want to do for tires, because that back tire really needs to be replaced, and the tube. The front one's holding, but the back tire has splits in the sidewall. Let me see if I can show you. Yeah, it's kind of hard to see because it's down here where it's been sitting. But we'll get a tire and a tube and a carburetor and an air filter, and we'll go from there. Maybe a new kill switch too. I know some people really dislike Amazon and they'd rather order stuff from the local dealer and wait for it to show up, but you just can't beat this, you know. Tires, tubes, carburetor, chain, and an entire new set of plastics here. Reasonably priced and shipped right to my door in 2 days. So I'm gonna open up these tires, throw them out here. It's a really nice, beautiful day today. So I'm gonna throw the tires out there in the sun. We'll get this thing up on a stand, pull the back tire off first, and remove the chain, take the seat off, take the rear plastics off, and just start putting some of these new bits and pieces on here. I removed the master link off the chain. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hook the new chain up to the old one with the old master link here and then pull it right through. It's a little old people trick here, so you don't have to pull the side cover off and try to feed it through there. Remove the rear fender and the seat. Actually, I'm sorry, the side covers in the seat. The rear fender is attached here. It looks like there's some kind of homemade contraption holding it on. We'll see if we can't come up with something better than that. So it looks like the seat, the side covers, and the tank shrouds are all attached to that seat. But unfortunately, we have got a spinning fastener here in the tank. Let me show you what these fasteners look like. It's like a nut inserted into the tank here. So sometimes what happens is these fasteners get corroded into that, and then that little piece spins in the tank. Now, this could be trouble. We'll see what we can do. There's a couple different ways you can try to get those out. So yeah, this is spinning inside of here in the plastic. So what I've done in the past is I have hooked up a little Allen wrench to my driver, and then you spin that in there with it, spin it a bit, and it'll get hot. And then one thing or another is going to happen. Either it is going to get hot enough to melt the plastic and then maybe reattach itself, or get hot enough to melt the plastic and pull completely out. Either one will be acceptable. If we pull it out, then we're just going to have to get it off of here and then put it back in there and then glue it. If it gets hot enough and melts and sticks back in there, then maybe this will come loose. So we'll try that. In the meantime, I've got the axle out. I just took the brake rod adjuster nut off of here. So hopefully we can get this back tire off. Put the brake rod out of there. Yeah. Look at that, we fought it on out of there. Here's the spacer here. And then this is where the brake rod goes through on the rear drum brake. We can check those brake shoes. They look brand new, actually. Look how nice those look. So just don't lose that bit. That in there, and now we will get to work removing this tire. Fighting these little tires off can be a real pain sometimes. Especially these are old and really stiff. So just take your time. Getting them back on obviously is more important because this is an old tire. I'm just tossing it, so I'm not too concerned about it, but when you're putting the new ones on, you got to be careful not to mess up the tube. This tube is pretty jacked up. I don't know how well you can see that right there. Yeah, that might be why we're having a problem. If you got rust on your chrome rims, and this isn't like a super fancy bike or something, you can use steel wool, and that'll take a lot of it off. And it'll make it look better. Like I said, this is not a super fancy bike. If I was restoring a Ducati, 1974 Ducati bevel head or something, we'd be a little bit more concerned about it. But that brings the shine right back, knocks out most of the rust. Chances are it'll come back, but another little hit of the steel wool we'll clean it up. So this bike will look a lot better. Okay, so I'm gonna show you real quick how we do this chain swap, nice and quick. So you put the new chain into the old chain, and then you just pull it right through. And there you go, new chain installed. Well, we may have to cut it, but we're installed now. So there you have it. I was going to show you the install of this tire, but it kind of went on like a hot dog in a hallway. Kind of cheap tires, probably a little bit oversized, but for this thing, it's going to be just fine. So we'll get this tire installed, we'll check the chain, and then we'll move on to the front tire. As usual, the high quality of camera work here. My dumb camera operator, which is me, didn't hit the little red button that says record when I was removing this thing. So I used my impact driver. It spun that nut around in there. It kind of melted this plastic, and then the nut came out of there. So now what you need to do is hold on to that with like a vice grips or pliers, get that off of there, and then try to get it back into here. Maybe put some adhesive or something like that in there. I've heard of people heating the tank up with a heat gun. I'm just gonna put it in there, put some adhesive, and then when we install the, wow, look how hot that got. Melted the plastic around there even. Yeah, so when we install it, we'll put some anti-seize on the threads, and we will just turn it in until it touches, and we won't over tighten it. I would rather have the fastener fall out than to have it get stuck in there again. So the steel wool cleaning stuff up is kind of the law of diminishing returns. You know, you're working on a motorcycle that's maybe, I don't know, $600, $700, $800 brand new. So you don't want to spend a lot of money fixing it up, but then again, you want it to look decent. So I cleaned up this end cap, and you can see the pitting on there, but it looks better. I mean, it looked like that. So if you clean up that, it might get a little bit cleaner. And the same with this heat shield. This one actually will probably clean up pretty good. Can you see which side I cleaned on the handlebars? But you look close, and the pitting is all still there. So it just makes it look a little bit better. If it's pitted, there's nothing you're really going to be able to do. And I used the 4-aught or 0000 steel wool. That's the finest steel wool. If you have really heavy corrosion, you can step up to the coarse stuff. But we've got the tire and tube installed. I got the chain installed on here, adjusted, tightened up. Everything is good to go on the back. We will do the front wheel, and I wasn't able to get this put back in there easily. And actually the insert that came out of there, the threads were in really bad shape. So I just took a nut and I put it in that way, and I super glued it in there. And for a little pit bike, I think we're gonna be just fine. And now the new plastics are starting to go on here. So this front fender's real easy, just 3 bolts underneath it. And this front side plate actually just sits right underneath that center bolt, and then clips in right up here. I'll probably clean up this first. And we've already installed our new tire on the front, and those little front fork legs were pretty nasty, but we cleaned them up a little bit with some steel wool as well. That bike's cleaning up okay. So as I'm installing this plastic onto this bike, everything attaches to the seat. Tank shrouds, the side covers, and the rear fender. Now I'm realizing why that odd little piece was on the back. It looks like something isn't right on this seat. We're definitely missing these. They're broken off, the seat tabs that go on there, and then there must be something else broken that attaches back here onto that, or something, I'm not sure. But we're gonna have to come up with a solution, and we may just utilize that little piece of metal they had Looks like something can go around that and hold it. I'm thinking I might use a hose clamp. We'll try it out, but we've got all the plastic attached to the seat, and it just sits on here. And we're gonna put our screw there, and there's one up here and one up here. And then really that's it for the cosmetics. And the last thing we'll have to do is change out the carburetor. Let's take a look at our Deluxe Carburetor Kit here. Oh boy, lots of extra gaskets, some trashy fuel filters. Might as well put a new one on there. And oh wow, this carburetor is immensely larger than the one that came on the bike. Look at the size of the slide. This will be interesting. It may or may not work. I guess we'll see. This little fella actually cleaned up pretty good. If you don't get too close. A little decal kit would do it good. This carburetor is installed. Let's see how she does. I didn't really care for the way it went on. I might have to modify the throttle cable. I think I have it as slack as I can get it, and I don't know as if this thing is going to idle. It might idle too high because there's not enough slack in this cable. So I may have to modify it. Kill switch does work, I found out. Yeah, it's not running great. It could be that air filter is too wide open. Sometimes it needs a little bit more restriction, but it's probably that carburetor is not sized correctly, or the jetting is way off. But I'm gonna zip it up and down the driveway real quick, and I'll come right back and we'll take a look at it. I may just have her dialed in here. Let's take a look. I always hate that sound it makes when you put that in there. I did some adjustments on the carburetor. I cut about 1/4 of an inch, maybe a little bit more, off the throttle cable. Maybe even just a little high still on the idle, but how the idle is here. We'll put it in gear. It should move on its own. It might be just a little bit high. It's creeping a little bit. But we're close. We're right there. I rode it up and down the driveway and shifts through all the gears, and this thing's pretty fun. I know people spend big bucks making these into adult toys. You know, they stick a tall seat, which adds a couple inches, and a little bit wider pegs and higher handlebars and big suspension, and next thing you know, you have what's known as a money pit. This is a good little kid bike. Let's move it outside. We'll get a nice look at it outside and close off the video. It's running pretty darn nice. I cleaned this up a little bit so it works better. Took it apart, and there's a spring and a little metal plate in there. Clean that up, because that thing failed on me the last time I tried to use it. So there she is in all of her glory. Watch out for that guy's shadow. Looks like a new bike almost, if you don't get too close to it. Wouldn't take much. Probably change out some fasteners and new set of handlebars. Not much, it would be just like brand new. But fun to work on, fun to ride, kids and adults. Ah, look at that sun. Okay, if you're digging what I'm putting out, Give me a thumbs up. Leave a comment down below if you would. And if you're not already a subscriber, please consider doing so. Thank you very much for watching. Get out there and find your adventure. Adios.